These first few pictures are of me and my dad because I wanted to show who I'm talking about. So, I don't know if you guys can ever trace back certain behaviors to... Sorry, Buster's eating and it's really, really loud. I don't know if you guys can trace back certain things from when you were like a teenager, and really figure out why you did what you did. But God, there's certain things that I was just thinking about that are so clear and obvious. And one of them I wanted to share, while I did learn a lot by this happening, I feel like I could have learned it in a much shorter and less unhealthy way. So maybe somebody somewhere, even if it's literally just one person, if they see this, maybe they won't go down this path because they'll recognize what they're doing and why. My dad was technically my stepdad, because my biological father, who is a lovely, kind human being, was just not ready to be a father. My dad, who I grew up with, sorry, I'm trying to make sure Buster gets his food because he took off halfway through his dinner. My dad, who I grew up with, who is the biological father of my sister, who's 5 years younger than me, he was a firefighter. Paramedic, engineer, so he drove the fire truck, and I learned since moving to Oregon that apparently from a viewpoint of at least cops, because I got one snotty cop that found out my dad was a cop, and he said, you know what they call firefighters, and him and his partner said, wannabe cops, and I was like, so anyhow, found out that apparently it's not all viewed the same, but he was a firefighter paramedic in Brea, which is a part of Los Angeles, and it's very much the city portion, not like Los Angeles County. Like, I grew up in Lancaster, Palmdale, Quartz Hill area, and that's like the desert, and technically it's Los Angeles County, but it's not like the city at all. Don't go there. It's awful, in my opinion. I don't like it. So anyhow, so I was already being raised by technically my stepdad, but he was always my dad. And I noticed when my sister was about 4, 5, 6, something like in there, he became just kind of different. He actually had OCD. And I found out that he had OCD the whole time, but he had like productive OCD. And, you know, it's funny, mental disorders they're only really labeled when they become a problem, but he had productive OCD. So he was a bodybuilder, and so he would do like he worked out at Gold's Gym. I don't even know if they have them anymore, but that was like back in very late 80s, early 90s. And so he would do like Mr. Fitness, and he was also really good at sports. And so he did, they have like an actual like Olympics just for fire and police. So anybody who's in law enforcement or some branch of the the firefighting area. So I guess EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, battalion chiefs, engineers, the whole shebang. And I'm guessing also sheriffs and police officers, so on and so forth. And so he did the Fireman Olympics, and he did racquetball, which I've never actually played, but seemed cool. It was in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I think it was like in 90... God, like somewhere between 91 and 93, somewhere in there. And anyhow, he was like a rock star. He was good at and I'm talking everything he did. And slowly but surely, when we got our new house, when I was about 9, 10 in there, so it was about 95-ish, the obsessions became less productive, more like problematic. And I had heard a lot about how bad some of the calls were. And he started, okay, that got cut off, but he started getting symptoms to where he got really obsessed with concrete work and Makita power tools. And he wanted to do all these slabs in the backyard. And then one of us got a pet bunny. And then we had a pet bunny in every, and I'm not exaggerating, every room of the entire house. We had bunnies. And he used that as the excuse to build a bunny run in the backyard. So another concrete slab with bricks and tunnels. And it was all really, it was cool. Very cool stuff. Yeah, but it was, upon reflection, really dysfunctional and unnecessary. Spent a lot of money. And then he started getting to where he, I don't know if he really believed it or if he knew he was lying. He would start saying that he had like systemic cancer, not skin cancer. And he actually rescued somebody from underneath a train crash and hydraulic acid splashed on his skin. And I do kind of feel like that was the beginning of like some weird thing happening to where, because he was a hero. He didn't need any more attention. I mean, you know, looking back, but something in him needed more. And so skin cancer that he had to get cut off and stuff and get skin grafts and stuff became brain cancer. And, you know, we started getting news from him that he was terminal. And then we found out later that he was telling, you know, people at the grocery store, this one lady, her name was Trish, I think. She worked at Albertsons. Well, first it was Lucky's, and then Lucky's became Albertsons. After it was, I think, like Alpha Beta or something like that was a grocery store in Lancaster. But, yeah, all of a sudden, all these people that, you know, we kind of knew that we were all, like, dying of cancer. And, of course, we didn't know it because it wasn't true. But it was, like, constant, like, craziness like that. And we were constantly getting new cars. And now I know it was because, you know, ones were getting, like, repossessed or we couldn't afford the payments, stuff like that. So my parents were at least good about us not knowing that part of it. But my dad just started, like, sleeping on, like, during the day on a recliner, a lazy boy in our living room. And I thought it was just because, you know, he was constantly recovering from this skin cancer. And, you know, and I imagine that was painful. It was distressing. It was probably really, really hard. And he was always this strong, tough guy. And he, on top of all that, he was painfully kind and charismatic and generous with his time and, you know, with his wisdom. He was so smart. Like, he could watch Jeopardy and just win. I remember being little watching that show because he loved it, so I just sit there and, like, stare at the screen. And, like, at, you know, 4, I said, like, what is an egg? I said it, like, 5,000 times, and finally it was the right answer. I have no idea what the question was. But, yeah, he was so smart, so talented, so strong, so kind, gifted. He was everything. And I think that was the problem, is he was everything to everyone. But I don't know that he really had a true personal identity. And but I think he found one that was acceptable in being a firefighter, because he was a hero and he could help people. He could literally save people's lives. And eventually, the surgeries on his face, you know, he was getting, you know, pain medication. And, you know, that became a problem at some point. I didn't know it. I just noticed he was tired and he was losing a lot of weight. He was not working out ever. He was taking more time off of work. And losing that when your job is that important and that big, and if you're no longer doing that other part where, you know, he was a bodybuilder doing, like, competitions, when you don't have that, and it's also going along with not being that hero, that firefighter, and at the same time, his mom, my grandma, who had 9 kids. So he was one of 9 children. So that's big. And he was like the superstar of the family. Like he was the flashy one. Because on top of being the, you know, the one that that had this fabulous career where he was acknowledged and he was constantly climbing up and everybody loved him. He was a great cook, taught us all like the fireman style stuff, you know, having chili on top of steamed rice because it's fast, because you got to eat fast, and you know, things to make yourself stronger, you know, all the different types of workouts. I have all of his tools and all of his like weights and stuff, which is really cool. I'm happy I have that stuff. But losing that and then not working out anymore, and then my grandma was really sick with lupus, and this was the early 90s. She then got cancer, and she was legitimately ill. She would come home for maybe a few weeks, if that, and then she'd be back in the hospital. And she was so kind. She hand knitted every grandkid. And so with 9 children of her own, almost everybody had at least one child, if not 2. Actually, I don't think anybody had more than 2, but so let's just say everybody had 1 kid. That's 9 blankets. 2 kids is 18. So, you know, she knitted all these hand-knitted blankets, and I do think it gave her something to, you know, make herself feel fulfilled. But my dad just loved her, and he would read to her every day. And when she died, it was like something just broke. And between her dying and kind of losing himself, I think because she got so sick, and then with these, you know, little cancer surgeries, it was like something just fell apart. And even though it really wasn't his fault, because I know the things that he saw, and he actually took Polaroids of it, and then he showed me some of them as a warning, and also showing off like what he did. He showed them to me really young, like 8, 9, 10. That was kind of like one of the biggest early indicators of that something's not right. And, you know, looking back, it's like, God, the cost was so high, and there were no mandatory like psychiatric things that had to be done for the men and women that were doing these jobs. You know, just like in the military, you see people that you work with being killed right in front of you. As a firefighter, you'll be trying to, you know, you got the jaws of life cutting somebody's car apart, and they're bleeding out, begging you to save them or save their children. You know, don't let me die, stuff like that. And you watch them die, or you deliver dead babies, you know, to women who are, you know, trying so hard to hold on, or to people who are on drugs, and they're saying, I'm so sorry, I don't know, you know, I want to get better, but they're dying, or they're giving birth to a dying baby, you know, just like all these things, just bam, 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 and they just stack up. And back then, there was no constant, like, checking up on people, and I don't think people are built to withstand that kind of trauma day in and day out. And as a firefighter, you do... Rarely is it a 24-hour shift. Typically, it's 48 or 72-hour shifts. Sometimes it's 96 hours, and then you'll get like 2, 3, or 4 days off, depending on how long you worked. And he just eventually just lost who he was, which is too bad, because he taught me how to play softball. He was so gifted with sports. And eventually, he started losing a lot of weight. And I, you know, we just knew something wasn't right. And I would see him taking aspirin, handfuls of aspirin, not Tylenol, aspirin, with Coke, soda. Like, I'm talking handfuls. And it was like in this secret, like, emptied out fridge with no door. He used as like kind of like a shelf in the garage. And he was trying to destroy his stomach, which it worked. And I think it was because the fire department put him on leave, and eventually let him go, but they didn't do anything to help him. And it just was so wrong. It so negligent, and just like, oh, you're a problem. Like this isn't gonna work, kind of thing. Kind of like if somebody marries somebody and a woman gets pregnant and has kids, and then she has like postpartum depression, or she gains a lot of weight and she can't lose it. She's having a hard time and some trouble, but they apparently were in love, and then all of a sudden it's like your problems are kind of bumming me out, so I'm gonna just like leave you. Like, that's what it was like for my dad to get totally just dumped by a fire department that he gave 26 years to. Devoted years. He was there when the Northridge earthquake happened. He was there when there were multiple massive wildfires, and they have to wear 50 pounds of gear and try to stop fires and potentially rescue people from their properties. I mean, it is a pure dedication job. Did it pay well? Sure. But upon reflection, I would have rather had my dad work at as a checkout person at a grocery store, and us, barely have made it, and have him, not have lost it all. And so eventually my parents, his aspirin and soda thing, it worked. It was Coca-Cola. Actually, I think it was Shasta. It was generic Coke. It worked. He fried his entire stomach. He had to get a full gastrectomy. They had to attach his esophagus to his intestines. He lost so much weight that he weighed about 125 pounds. And this is a man that is almost 6 feet tall and used to be a bodybuilder that weighed almost 200 pounds, just full of muscles, and had a great job, great personality, great sense of humor, great social life, just great, and good head on his shoulders, to nothing, because, not nothing, I shouldn't say that, to a very broken person. And seeing that kind of devastation day in and day out, and then having his own mom have that happen, it was just too much. And eventually my parents divorced. I don't know if anything happened with the fire department, but with him like frying his stomach, obviously if he got a lawsuit or any money, we didn't know about it. But and he also, I guess they were paying into a life insurance thing for a while, because but in 2013 he had moved to Georgia with his sister and his brother-in-law, my aunt and uncle, and he seemed to be doing better. When I had my liver transplant in 2006, he actually flew out, but I was still in a coma, so I don't remember. But I know he was there, and he wrote me a lot of cards afterwards. And he eventually, in September of, every bad thing that's ever happened to me, personally, like to me, has been in September. I don't know what that's about. But he killed himself. We've had a couple different stories from family of how it was done. One was Seroquel and a bunch of other pills and booze, and then slit his wrists. The other one was a shotgun. I don't know. Either way, he ended his own life, and it was just devastating because I had talked to him weeks before, and he sounded really good. But I guess that's like the surge, like where they figured out like a plan, like how they're gonna just end this suffering. Because he was like delusional. He told me that he was rescuing orphans in Bosnia, which was not true. He said he was at Ground Zero when the World Trade Centers went down. He was rescuing people. That's not true either. He said he was at the Oklahoma City bombings to help, and that's not true. He was having all these delusions, and I was only like 20 when he was telling me these things, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I was on drugs myself, so I mean, what was I gonna do? And who was gonna believe me? So when my dad was just kind of falling apart, and I was like 15, I got completely, and this is gonna cut off in a second, completely obsessed and intertwined with a guy named Darren that I thought totally in love with. Really, I was just codependent and obsessed with him. And I guess, he did love me. He certainly loved me more after I left, but, together we were isolated, we got fat, we smoked weed. It was just bad and dirty and sad and it was no good, no good. But the thought of him leaving was so devastating that I literally felt like I was going to die. It was really sick, and that's the thing that I'm warning about from a personal, from the person looking at their own lives. If you find yourself chasing somebody and you have an absent father, or perhaps a couple absent father figures, and you are chasing... Yes, Lottie. I don't know. What? What? He's feeling very chatty. Lottie's very chatty cat. What? What are you doing? Yeah, the whole being a teenager and just chasing somebody and holding on to them, white knuckling somebody, is not a good sign. That means you're probably not in love with them. You're just so terrified to be alone or feel abandoned, or you're so afraid that there's something wrong with you that is causing people to leave you, especially when a father or father figure has left, that you will end up holding on to somebody who is no good for you. And that's what I did from 15 to 18, and then I got back with him from 20, during my, the whole time I was 19 and a half to 20 and a half, so in there somewhere. Altogether it was 5 years, give or take, 6 or 7 months. And this guy, the crazy thing is he wasn't even a rotten person, was not right for me, was not ready for a relationship. I was also, abusing drugs and totally screwed up, because at 17 I had this huge tumor on my ovary, and it had fallen, twisted my ovary, made it necrotic. They had to take out the tumor, and then I got myasthenia gravis, and it was just boom, 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 domino effect. And so now he's got this ill girlfriend, and he was there for me during it, but when I came out of it, he was more than happy to fatten me up to where obviously nobody would want me, and I had to use a walker for 7 months during the whole stretch. So anyhow, that's the first big thing is, don't hold on to somebody just because you're afraid to be alone. It's bad. You hold on to somebody because they are special. They make you feel wanted. They make you feel like you matter more than anything else to them. And your happiness matters to them more than their own. Because if somebody's only kind and thoughtful to you when they're happy with you, that's not good. That's conditional love. That's not unconditional love. And they're not in love with you. They're, well, a problem. And the other point I wanted to make was, if you want to be a firefighter or in the military or a police officer, anybody that deals, or, heck, a caregiver, a surgeon, anybody who deals with people who are going to be in accidents or dying frequently, or, that you're going to deal with drug addicts who could potentially be ODing, a lot of times you're going to bond, whether it's for 10 to 15 seconds or 10 to 15 days, years, months, whatever it is. Seeing people die in front of you, or dismembered, or in absolute distress, or if you're a firefighter and somebody is burnt, beyond recognition, it will mess you up. And the question is, you gotta weigh what it's worth. because sanity is not guaranteed. Some people can make it through, they can compartmentalize, and some people can't, and it's not always your choice. So be careful. Seriously.